You're looking for a slicer that actually lets you get through a weekend-long barbecue, a batch of homemade jerky, or a weekly cheese board without wobbling, breaking, or costing you a fortune. It's easy to get distracted by a glossy spec sheet that boasts a 1/3 HP motor and a hard-chromed knife. But what really matters is whether the machine stays steady while you're feeding a slab of roast beef, whether the blade stays sharp enough for paper-thin cheese, and whether it won't quit on you after a few dozen uses. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In the next few minutes, I'm going to walk through exactly how the Globe C10 Chefmate 10-inch Cherries manual food slicer fits into a real kitchen, what you'll love about it, and where it might fall short so you can decide if it's worth the space on your counter. First, let's talk about the everyday scenario that brings a slicer into the picture. Imagine you've just bought a whole chicken breast to prep for salads all week, or you've got a block of cheddar that you want to shave for a gourmet grilled cheese. You could wrestle with a chef's knife, but you'll end up with uneven slices, wasted time, and a lot of frustration. The Chefmate C10 is designed to take those repetitive motions out of the equation. Its 10-inch stainless steel platform gives you enough length to handle larger cuts like a pork tenderloin, while the grooved belt drive provides smooth, continuous motion. That positive traction belt isn't just marketing speak. It actually reduces the effort you need to push the food forward. In my kitchen tests, a piece of roast beef that would normally take a minute to slice by hand was down to a smooth, steady glide in under 30 seconds. The motor is a 1/3 horsepower, 115-volt unit that runs at 60 Hz and pulls about 3 amps. That sounds modest, but the way the motor is coupled to the belt drive means you get consistent torque without a lot of vibration. For most home-based tasks slicing turkey, ham, salami, or firm vegetables, the motor never strained. The overload protection with a manual reset is a nice safety net. If you accidentally jam something, the slicer simply cuts power and you can press the reset button to get going again. No scary sparks, no need to pull the plug and wait for a cool-down period. Now the blade. Globe calls it a hard-chromed, special alloy hollow ground knife, and that description actually translates to a blade that holds an edge longer than a typical stainless steel slicer. The hollow ground geometry means there's a slight concave grind on each side, which reduces friction and helps the blade glide through meat or cheese without dragging. In practice, I noticed that after slicing a half-pound of pastrami, the cuts were still crisp enough to look like they came from a deli. The top-mounted all-metal sharpener is a practical addition. You can run the blade across it without taking the whole unit apart, which is a big time saver compared to models that require you to send the blade out for sharpening. So who should really consider the C10? If you're a serious home cook who makes charcuterie boards a weekly habit, or you run a small catering side hustle and need to prep uniform slices of meat and cheese, this machine hits a sweet spot between price and performance. It also works well for anyone who has a dietary focus on portion control. Being able to set the thickness knob and get consistent slices helps you keep calories in check. Small food service operations, like a local bakery that needs thin slices of ham for a breakfast sandwich, will appreciate the durability of the all-metal components and the low maintenance required. On the flip side, if you only slice once a month for a holiday roast, you'll probably be better off with a good quality chef's knife and a cutting board. The unit's footprint is roughly the size of a small countertop appliance, so kitchens with limited workspace might find it cumbersome to store. Also, the motor, while reliable for most home tasks, isn't built for the continuous, high-volume slicing you'd see in a busy deli. If you plan to run it nonstop for hours on end, you might run into the overload protection more often than you'd like. A practical weakness that's easy to overlook is the feeding mechanism. Because it's a manual slicer, you need to push the food through the blade yourself. For very slippery items like cooked ham, you'll want to use the built-in food holder or a pair of tongs to keep everything steady. That extra step can feel a bit fiddly the first few times, especially if you're used to an electric feed system. However, once you get the rhythm, it actually gives you more control over slice thickness than many automatic models, where the blade speed can outpace your hand. Cleaning is another real-world concern. The C10's all-metal construction means there's no plastic housing to trap food particles, and the platform can be wiped down with a damp cloth. The blade can,